About 6, 7 years ago, while I was still a mere student, a friend of mine broke up with his girlfriend in the most well thought way I've ever seen with my own eyes. Let's start with a little backstory. They met each other during high school and got together a year before this story, and they were a really nice couple for a long time. He, let's call him John, was the kind of guy who was fairly handsome, a good student, and on top of that, one of the nicest person in our class. She, Jane, was objectively beautiful, long brown hair, nice silhouette from horse riding almost her entire life. She even had her own horse that she got as a pony colt or filly years ago. She was pretty nice if you were her friend, even if she could be a little bitchy from time to time, but she was way worse with those she didn't saw as friends, so almost half of the class. That was comically almost divided in two, even physically, by how we sat in the classroom. John's best friend, Jim, was also in our class, and he also had a crush on Jane during high school because she was hard to miss and pretty popular. But she chose John, and that was the end of it for him. He had girlfriends too after that, everything was fine. But during our second year of BTS, French diploma after high school, Jane's behavior drifted more and more toward the naggy and not as pleasant side she rarely showed before, all the while becoming a little bit more flirty with guys, especially Jim, who she knew had a crush on her in high school. Not often, and never when John could see, but she liked the attention you can get when you don't turn down guys who hit on you immediately. It never got really far, and even if we told John she was less nice to be around than before, he still loved her, so it didn't bother him too much. But he did try to calm her a little bit after we talked about that. Then, during Christmas holidays that they each spent with their respective family like they did every year, Jane and Jim went to a party together, which wasn't that unusual since they were both amongst the frequent partygoers in our class, since they lived in the same town, and it was hosted by a common friend from high school. John couldn't come because he was catching up with his cousins he didn't saw for months that evening. I don't have a lot of details, but Jane and Jim got hammered during that evening, and all the flirting ended up with her pulling him into a room where they fucked. When he realized what happened, the next morning after sobering up, Jim was mortified and drove all the way to John's house to tell him what happened, that he was so sorry, he would never have done that sober, yada yada. He even told John to hit him if he wanted to, and he wouldn't fight back, because even if John wasn't a slob, Jim was almost a head taller than him and really strong too. Fortunately, their friendship went back to elementary school, and John knew he was telling the truth, especially since he was a little bit more careful with how Jane acted after some of us talked about her, and he saw that she could get a bit too flirty with him. It did take some time for him to get over it, but they are still friends to this day, as far as I know. New Year's Eve was the next time he saw Jane, and he asked her about what happened at that party, but she freaked out and asked him how he could believe she would do something behind his back, and she wasn't a whore, that Jim drooled over her since high school, and he tried to take advantage of her while she was drunk but only got a kiss. Not even with a moment of hesitation. He acted like he believed her and apologized, spent a nice evening, and started plotting his revenge. They started dating at the end of last January, so their anniversary was coming up, and this is when he would do it. He had a key to her apartment, so while she was out all afternoon preparing for the evening, he really made the place look fantastic. She came home to a trail of rose petals leading to a table lit only by a few candles while a soft music was playing. John really liked to cook, and as expected, the diner was amazing, with a handmade salad of different vegetables cut in balls and glazed in oil. Honestly, I ate with him once. His dishes looked like those of a four-star restaurant. And the main plate, a nice, juicy steak. After a few bites, he asked her how it was, and when she told him she loved it, he said, "See, I told you you would love Epona, random horse name number 42, even in your plate." She wasn't a vegetarian, but she took the "I like horses as family, not as meals" sentence literally with her horse. She dropped her fork and became white as a ghost before springing to her feet, running for the bathroom, frantically screaming incoherent noises since she was already beginning to vomit the meat she just ate. Sadly for her, he had duct-taped the lid of the toilets shut and put the braid Jane used to tie in Epona's mane on the seat. She just broke down crying, curled up on the floor where the barf was slowly dripping from the seat, repeating, "Epona, you bastard, my poor Epona." He calmly finished his horse steak, then picked up his things, told her he knew she cheated since the day after it happened, that they were breaking, and oh, happy anniversary, then left. The meat was, of course, not her horse. He was angry at her, but he isn't a psychopath, even if it was horse meat, which is pretty good, at least for my taste. But the braid was indeed the real thing. But hair grow back. It took her half a week to realize Epona was fine, since she remained locked up in her apartment for days when a friend called to ask why she wasn't there, riding with them one afternoon.